part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
This episode of the Chase Smith Podcast, proudly part of the Press Play Podcast Network, is brought to you by a presenting sponsor, Uproar Coaching. Let me guess, you're ready to get serious about your goals and you're looking for accountability support, but you don't have the time or the tolerance for the chit-chat. You're busy balancing work and life and home and all that other crap, and your to-do list isn't getting any shorter. You've been talking about making that career leap, finishing that creative project, kicking that bad habit, but you simply don't have the time and energy to invest in yourself. Listen, Uproar Coaching gets you. You are busy. What if I told you you can get maximum accountability with minimal commitment? Productivity without punishment. Uproar Coaching's Busy Bitch program brings you all of the good stuff you'd get from a weekly hour-long coach session, minus the conversation. Here's how it works. Each Friday morning for 5 weeks, you'll receive an email with 3 prompt questions. Take 10 minutes to answer those questions. That's it. By Monday, midday, you'll receive a personal reply offering support and challenging those limitations you're putting on yourself. This is productivity supercharged. And let me tell you, once you meet Carrie, you're going to want her to speak positivity and motivate you to accomplish your goals. She's authentic, enthusiastic, and genuine. She's the real deal. So go to uproarcoaching.com today, click on Work With Me, and find the Busy Bitch program. Listeners of the Chase Smith Podcast receive 10% off her Busy Bitch program by using promo code P3 at checkout. Again, visit uproarcoaching.com today to learn more.
The 1-1 pitch. A swing and a drive to deep right. Away back. Goal!
And with that hammy call, it's time for Guardians of the Land MLB Podcast. I'm filling in as your host today, and with me, longtime Guardians fan. He brings you the sports news, Fox 8 in Cleveland. He co-hosts the Cavs of the Break NBA podcast with Sam Amico, myself, and Jeremy Akron, and the Sabol brothers on the baseline with his brother, Scott, right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, John Sabol. John, let's talk some baseball, buddy. What do you say?
Hey, let's do it. Let's talk some, I was going to say talk tribe, but I can't say it anymore. Let's go guards.
You know,
the G's. What are people calling them now? The guards?
The guards,
G's?
I think. So I've been to a few
quite
games.
A bit.
Been to a few games. I have a confession, John.
Okay.
Flying baseball logo is growing on me.
Oof.
I think it looks great on the sidearm.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some really fire hats. I don't know why. I kind of dig it now.
I'll say this. And I said this before. Actually, I don't think we've ever talked about the logo and the name change on a podcast. I know my brother and I did last summer a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'll just keep this brief because we're beating a dead horse with, this is now almost a year old now. Yeah. But it's fans, most of them didn't like it and still don't like it. I think the Diamond C is an upgrade over the boring Block C.
I disagree with that.
Block C was boring.
Come on.
Dude, the 70s C was way better. You go to Cleveland Buckeye C was way better. Even the 19 teens curly C was better. Even the Wishbone C was better with Chief Wahoo.
I'll tell you what this Diamond C feels like. This Diamond C feels like when I tell my daughter to clean her room and she looks at me and kicks stuff under her bed. Like, I'll do it, but I don't want to. It looks like they didn't want to change their old name, and so they kept like the stick like lettering to like keep that going. I love the Block C. I think classic. It looks great on a hat. I love the Block C.
A great analogy, by the way, and I completely agree with that because they did the same thing with the font of Cleveland and Guardians on the jerseys. They just basically took the Indians and Cleveland font and tweaked it a little bit, which I'm actually cool with. I think the font on their jerseys is the best brand of them, of all 3 phases, if you think about it, and they kept the colors. So It looks kind of the same. Mm-hmm. The Flying G logo was bad to the start.
Agreed.
It lacked creativity. It's clunky. The ball seems like a beach ball, not
it's growing on me, John Sabol. It is growing on me.
They could have gotten so much more creative with the Guardian statues. They used the pattern of not the feather, but the pattern along the border, the Art Deco pattern, I guess you could say. The team uses that on a lot of their press releases, on their graphic imagery, social media. They could do that more with maybe a head or something. My bold prediction, hot take here, is that logo will eventually change again in a couple years.
Well, that's not
once
as hot as
once
the take you gave pre-show. Pretty hot Kevin Durant take you gave, which I still need to like think about that. But
yeah.
okay, so I agree with everything you said. I did not like the Flying G logo when it dropped. I was like, what the heck? This is the worst thing ever. But it's growing on me a lot,
Now,
and I kind of like it.
But here's the thing: is something growing on you, or are you just getting used to it? Because I think they're one and almost the same. Like, I don't think they're growing on me. I still don't like it, but I'm used to seeing it more. So I'm like, meh, okay, fine. I'm used to it.
No, I think I've seen it used. It looks great on a like on their side sleeve. It looks great there
as a sleeve patch.
Yes, I love that. I've seen it used a couple really grateful ways. You know what I don't like? The word Guardians script above the huge billboard and out and above left field. It is way too long of a word. I still have issues with like how they've rolled out some of this logo stuff, but it just is way too many words. It is just looks crammed. It looks forced. It looks awful when you go to the park, Progressive Field.
Okay, well, let me touch on the sleeve patch.
I'm all fired up. I'm all fired up.
I think it looks okay as a sleeve patch. I'll give you that. There was some contention that Major League Baseball wasn't going to let them do that because there's a rule indicating that you can't have a baseball on a jersey.
Oh yeah, I just did a throwing motion. If you can't, because you can't see this because pitchers, they like.
And I guess it's dull enough in a way where you don't see it as much because obviously it's white and you have the red and the navy border that maybe it kind of fades out, so it's not as obstruction as having like a generic baseball on it. I don't know what the ruling was on that, but there was some concern there they couldn't get away with it, but they did. But if you notice, they put it on the other side of the sleeve and not on the left side, because then it would be inverted and it'd be backwards looking into a mirror. That's why they had to put it on the right side. It's actually the first time I did some uniform digging.
There you go.
This is the first time ever in the history of the team, dating back to the teens, that they had a primary logo on their right side of their sleeve and on their left side.
Wow.
They always had the Chief Wahoo on the left, or they had another variation of that on your left. So So you're getting some uniform history here.
Well,
too,
just
Chase,
wanted
I didn't think you'd sign up for.
No, well, I just wanted to get it out there into the universe that it's growing on me. I like it. I'm gonna send you some pics of some fire flying baseball hats. And
real quick, what's wrong with you don't like the script above the scoreboard? You think it's too long?
Too long, too many letters. It's too many letters.
It's only 2 letters more than the Indians.
It doesn't work. In my opinion, it doesn't work.
Okay, no, I will say that it's on an angle which throws you off. The script Indians logo, the script was iconic. I loved it. It was perfect.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Hey, you know what? It's funny. Things can change. At least we have a team, and at least they're run really well in terms of front office and on the field. They're playing surprisingly really well baseball here in the early August, which we didn't think they would be in.
They're playing great. They are 6-4 in their last 10. They're 1 game back of the AL Central leading Twins. We're going to talk about a playoff outlook here in a little bit, but it seems, John, that the brass of the Guardians kind of like what they're seeing as well. The Guardians decided to stay put at the trade deadline. Were you surprised?
There was so much going on, so many rumors in terms of who could be on the move. I'm not surprised. I'm not, because they were in on Murphy out in Oakland. They were looking at him as a catcher. Asking price was too high. This front office said from the beginning, we're going to play these young guys, which we'll get into here, and we're not going to let any success in the field deviate from our plan, because we need to get these young guys in and seeing what we have before we can take that, virtual, next step. So to trade away any prospects just for someone that could help them now or in the next year or two is against their plan. When, let's be real, this team, I know as we record this here on August 8th, is still 1 game behind Minnesota for first place. They're still playing well above their head right now. They're not scoring enough runs. They're not hitting the ball consistently. Are they a threat for a playoff team? Sure, they could sneak in as a wild card or as a Central Division team. I don't think they'd go deep. And even that is still a bonus. So not making a move shows to me that they are sticking to their plan of keeping these guys and bringing these AAA players that you're starting to see come up now and throughout the year going into September of trying to evaluate who they have. We've seen this with Nolan Jones. We've seen this with some of the other pitchers with Gaddis. There's going to be more. And so they need to start seeing these guys before they can make any other moves going forward that's going to impact this team next year and years beyond that.
As of a couple weeks ago, the Clippers were the number one offensive AAA team in the minors. And so they got some studs down there. Bo Naylor being one of them, who just entered the top 100 prospects list. I love that they didn't make any moves, and it seemed like a couple players did as well. Ahmed Rosario has just had a huge 7-10 days post trade deadline. Just really hitting the ball well, playing great defense. And it seems like he was kind of anxious to see where he was going to go. He's staying put, and it's really helped him focus. And then it kind of like seemed to like bring the team together as well. They had a couple extra inning wins again. And so this could be, I mean, I don't want to blow it out of proportion, but this could be like a watershed moment that says, hey, like, let's see what happens here. Let's see how far this thing can go. And we can sneak in and do some damage here in the postseason in October.
And I think that's the plan that they would want. I think that's okay, because think about this, Chase. You have a young team in there and you give them some playoff experience. That's just like in any sport. You and I talked about this in the Cavs pod. You talk about the Browns and football. I mean, any playoff experience, if you can get there.
Well, I'm not talking about the Browns.
Well, of course you're not. But you know what I mean? It takes you to a mental state of a game where nothing else can really give you any other experience than to actually be there. Yep. Doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed to come back, but at least getting a little taste, if they can keep this up and sneak in, is going to help this team going forward down the road. You talk about Ahmed Rosario, and he was a guy that was being shopped around. I mean, he's not because they wanted to get rid of him, just because he was having such a great year. And, they could have got a decent return from him if they wanted to deal him. But I think by not trading him proves that they are like, okay, let's just see what we've got. And and go from there. And I think it's a smart move. I was kind of surprised when we say this now. I'm surprised they waited as long as they did on Franmil Reyes, DFAing him.
Yes.
And we'll get into that here, I guess. But
yeah,
the roster moves thus far have been pretty spot on, and they're doing a great job with it.
Mm-hmm. For as much slack as the Guardians brass gets for not spending money, they always seem to be ahead of the curve and make the right moves a year before it's too late. And I want to, we'll touch on Franmil Reyes and what trade brought him here, and not that is kind of over in a moment. John, do you have a favorite young player for the Guardians?
Currently on the Major League roster, or just one that's going to be coming up? Or
one right now. Yeah, one that's playing now, one that's making moves, doing his thing up here for the Guardians. You have a favorite youngin?
I love Tristan McKenzie. I think he's finally taken that step. His command has been apples and oranges versus how he was last year. He's going deep into games, and we needed a starter this year to do that, and we've got one right now. I missed out on the All-Star team this year, which you maybe not have the numbers per se for All-Star worthy, but if
he's got the personality for it.
He's got the personality. Absolutely. I mean, the kid is, she's 25 years old, but he acts like he's 45 years old, the way he talks, because he's so mature, wise beyond his years, grounded. He's going to be All-Star material here next year. I would like to think so. But let me just look at some of his numbers. I mean, they're just outstanding in what he's been able to do. They needed a boost from somebody this year. They weren't getting it from Sabol. He's been hurt. They haven't been getting it from Plesac. He's been inconsistent. Bieber's been a little inconsistent. Quantrill's been inconsistent at times. But you're getting McKenzie in there, and who's having a fantastic season. I mean, geez, that's a guy you feel like you'd want to lock up right now.
Tristan McKenzie leads the team with a 3.16 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big Stephen Kwan fan. Andres Jimenez has been just a delight to see kind of come into his own here. And gosh, that Lindor trade, you look back and it's just like huge. Well,
Lindor's started to heat up a little bit now. He had a slow start, picked up in June. I was just looking at his numbers yesterday. Had a dip in July, and then started in the last like 3-4 weeks. It really kind of picked up a little bit.
Naquin's on the Mets, and he and Lindor had a moment in the dugout a few games ago. I think he had a home run or something, and they were like, I don't know. It was weird to see.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I guess the extra base hits, I don't have the stat in front of me. I wrote it down on my desk at work a week ago. The extra base hit totals, RBI totals between Jimenez and Rosario are like way better than Lindor's. It's crazy. And to think that you got both of those guys for him is nuts. And it's funny. Think about this. So you have two guys in that trade still on this team.
Mm-hmm.
But with Franmil Reyes getting DFA'd and now picked up by the Cubs today, and this ends an interesting part of that trade that the then Indians got for Trevor Bauer in that three-way deal with the Reds and Padres. This effectively, I don't know if you want to call it a win to the Cleveland for Cleveland, but
no one won in that deal. I don't
maybe
think.
no one won in that. Yeah. But for Reyes gone, Victor Nova, who the Indians got in that deal, is playing independent ball now. Logan Allen, who we know had been with this team for a little bit, is playing for the Orioles. Yasiel Puig is playing in Korea. Scott Moss, who was last year in AAA, is now down in rookie A-ball for the Phillies.
Wow.
And then Trevor Bauer is out of baseball. I mean, think of that loaded of a trade that happened in 2019. I mean, if anybody wanted, I guess the Indians at the time, only because the last player standing is Reyes.
Also,
it's still a major wash.
Aren't dealing with the
teams.
PR disaster of Bauer anymore. Like that's also a win. To offload that junk is probably a automatic win.
And the other player in the deal, I think that Cincinnati sent to San Diego, or San Diego sent to Cincinnati, was a minor leaguer, Trammell, who is now playing for Seattle. So it talk about a deal that on the surface probably had a lot of promise and just 3 years later fell apart.
Anytime I looked at the stats or highlights, it felt like Franmil was swinging and missing or just not making good contact. It did seem like his status and veteran status and name recognition kept him with the team a lot longer. Was not shocked that he's no longer with the team. Was not shocked he got picked up quickly either. So him and Mustard are going to be, they've been DFA'd to, and good for Franmil to keep playing ball.
Chase, my thing with Reyes is, the guy had some crazy power, and for last year, he was a feared power hitting player in baseball. I mean, he had some pretty good numbers. And at times when he was locked in as some of the best in the league. The problem is he lost it. And you don't just lose it like that. And, there was some talk that the team wasn't happy with the way he was, his weight gain and his body, not taking care of himself. I mean, that probably played a role in this decision. But when you just go ahead and you waited as long as you could with him right now in August, I thought, it didn't matter if they kept him now or they got rid of him 2 weeks ago. I was surprised they kept on this long, and because they want all these influx of these young guys to come up. So what are they waiting for? I'm surprised it took them a couple weeks longer, but still, to your point, they probably just kept him just because of what he's been able to do in the past, and they're just waiting for him to turn it on. Yeah. But if you don't turn it on like that, they must think that this is never going to come back. For that.
Well, they have so many great young players, and it was kind of almost like a black hole in the lineup that is like, just you felt better about other players hitting. So that effectively closes that chapter of where that team was then. John, real quick before we wrap up, playoff outlook, like we mentioned earlier, 1 game out of the AL Central leading Twins, about to kick off a 6-game road trip. 3 in Detroit, where we're going to be tossing out Biebs, Savale, and Plesac. Savale is scheduled. We'll see if that works out. And then 3 in Toronto before the Guardians come back home for a 7-game homestand against the very same Tigers and the White Sox. The Twins, on the other hand, on the West Coast with the streaking Dodgers, who have, I think, won like 6 or 7 straight. I don't know if they're winning tonight. when we're recording Monday. And the Angels, could we see maybe the Guardians catch the Twins here coming up?
I mean, schedule is certainly in that favor if you think about it. They could catch him. I wouldn't be a bit surprised, Chase, if they do catch him and then maybe go up a game or two. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable. Man, this Central Division is so crazy to think. It's been up there for the taking, and no one's been able to take it.
Yeah.
I mean, the White Sox have been on the Guardians' heels all summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're one game behind us. They're two back of the Twins. So
here's the other thing too. When you look at their runs scored, I mean, the Guardians are only a positive 8 differential in runs scored. Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah.
I mean, last year in the COVID shortened year, they're almost negative, and they're just recently slowed down a little bit in some of their offensive output.
Mm-hmm.
But the White Sox, who are supposed to be one of those teams this year that everyone picked to go to the World Series, it seemed like, are a differential of -12.
-12.
And the Twins are +27. It just there's no dominant, consistent scoring team here.
Yeah.
So it is funny to really think that's how this season has gone for Chicago. And playoff outlook, I could see them still sneaking in, Cleveland sneaking in as a wild card, because remember there's another wild card team this year, and that benefits a team like that.
Yes.
And if you can get maybe 3 hot starters, if you can get Bieber going consistently and maybe Quantrill, that might be enough to slide into a wild card spot. But we still got a long way to go. We still got about 7-8 weeks of baseball left.
Do you feel like the Guardians have to win the division to get in, or can they get into the wild card? So the wild card, they got the Blue Jays, who are 60-49. They're at the top of the wild card. No one's catching the Yankees. You got the Tampa Bay Rays at sitting behind the Blue Jays at 58-50, and then you have the Mariners, Orioles, the Guardians, the White Sox, all kind of right there at the 59, 51, 56, 52 kind of area. I mean, a lot of baseball left, obviously, but do you feel like we have to win the Central to get to the postseason? Because, I mean, essentially, there's going to be 2 spots open. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to fall that far. But that's just...
It's a good question. I think in years past, I would say you would have to, because you didn't have that extra team. Now you do. And considering as we sit here and record on August 8th, you have only a couple games differentiating, 2 games for the Guardians to get out of that last wild card spot.
Yeah.
And only 3.5 out of the first wild card spot between Toronto, Seattle, and Tampa and Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm giving Toronto. I'm shooing in Toronto. So I'm saying there's 2 spots effectively for 6 teams: Tampa Bay, Seattle, Baltimore, Cleveland.
And think about this: Seattle and Baltimore have been perennial bottom feeders, basement dwellers for decades now, and they've kind of came up to the surprise teams in all of baseball. So that's kind of cool to see. You kind of hope to root for them. Hopefully, it doesn't root over the Guardians, but it's tough to say. But I mean, if you want Toronto, if you're going to pencil Toronto in, you think they're going to get hot and get that spot.
John's auditioning to host the Mariners at the Sea MLB podcast here. I don't know what.
Here's the thing with Tampa, you got to watch out for. This is the team that I had covered for quite a few years.
Oh, that's right. You're
a
man on the inside here.
That team has had at one point in time like 13 or 14 players on the injured list this season, and they're the star number 1 prospect Wander Franco, who came up last year, who's hurt, and they have another guy, Kevin Kiermaier's hurt a lot. He's done for the year. You got a lot of guys in there that are being pushed into positions there, and they're still somewhat thriving. Cleveland and Tampa Bay have mirrored front offices in a lot of the ways that they develop their talent, the way that they evaluate their talent, and sometimes cut bait on guys before they fall off.
Yeah.
There's very similarities between both
Kluber, for example.
Yeah. I mean, you just go down the line. I mean, there's just so many. Kevin Cash used to be the Indians bullpen coach before he took the Rays job.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of familiarity there. Of course, his relationship with Francona and the front office guys there, Eric Neander and the GM of the Rays is close with Chris Anthony and Mike Chernoff of the Guardians. But that being said, even though the Rays may not be as strong as they had been in the past, they could still kind of get hot here if they're getting guys back healthy, and could easily take that wild card spot too. So if that's the case, it's going to come down to, two teams that are unproven, Seattle and Baltimore, and then Cleveland, who's also unproven, but still has some. Well, if you think about it, there's not many guys on there that played in the playoffs. Well, I guess the COVID shortened year, Bieber, Ramirez, off the top of my head, those two guys, a couple other ones, but relatively 3 unproven teams would then fight for that last spot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm feeling good. I want to be optimistic. I want to say that the Guardians will make the playoffs because it'll be fun. Why not? Why not have a team make the playoffs? The Cavs couldn't quite pull it off. Let's have a young Guardians team in there.
Oh man, could you imagine if a season like this, that they were not projected and predicted to go very far at all, and they sneak in? That'd be great to see. Playoff baseball in Cleveland in October is awesome. Yeah. Yep. We'll see what happens. Well, that does it for this episode of the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Follow us online at Press Play Pods. Visit our website at pressplaypodcast.com to keep all of up to date with all of our shows, network news, and sponsorship information. Shouts to our presenting sponsor of this episode, Uproar Coaching. Use promo code P3 at checkout for a 10% off of their life coaching class. Uproarcoaching.com to learn more. John, plug something for us, man. Yeah, you could watch me on Fox 8 News in Cleveland here if you're local, or tune into the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast that I do with my brother Scott Sabol. We're taking a couple weeks off here to lock and load and do training camp with football with the Browns, and then kind of wind down some Guardian stuff. So we've got some cool baseball and football shows with some former players coming up in the coming weeks.
Well, you just had Baker's agent on, which was awesome.
Yes, which was great. If you guys haven't gone ahead and listened to that, download it, go for it. And it's funny because one of Baker's agent's predictions of this training camp appears to be coming true.
Yeah, Baker's winning that job, or has won already somehow.
Yeah,
it wasn't really a competition.
Yeah. No.
I've shared this. I've done my best to mute people who post about Browns. I'm just trying to do a clean cut.
Oh man, I hope you're not muting me.
No, you are not muted. I haven't muted Holly or Tyvis either.
Okay.
Sam's always on auto mute. I just always mute anything Sam Amico says. No, I'm just kidding. Sam's catching strays here at a Guardians pod.
Yeah, shade.
No, but some Baker stuff is on my timeline, and started off throwing a lot of picks. Seems to be doing pretty well in Carolina. And I, to be honest, John, have not followed much of what's going on in Browns camp. I heard that Hunt requested a trade, but then he was back at camp. So I don't really know what's going on. And I'm trying not to care.
Well,
I'm not fishing. I'm just saying that's how much I don't know.
I've been at camp quite a bit. I'm going there tomorrow. And
I don't know if I want to hear this, John. All of me wants to hear what you're going to say, but it's hard, to be honest. It's hard.
I talked to Chomps, the mascot, and he says he misses you and wants you to come back.
I don't know what to say about that. Now you're trying to dogs, man. Come on. Well, hey, we end the Cavs pod, John, doing a Mike Breen take us out, which is a lot of fun. I love doing it. No one else quite has the same passion, I feel like, that I do.
I don't know if it's the passion. I think it's the pipes. You got the pipes to do it.
Well, what we have done in the past is ask people to give a hammy call, which is a 3-line. And so I won't do it to you this time.
Okay.
But maybe if we find ourselves talking baseball again, maybe have you do it. But I'm going to close the show with this hammy call. A swing and a drive, way back, gone!
Who keeps you cheering year after year? Who's got the ballpark? The best is all right here. Who's got the fans with so much Cleveland pride? Who's talking baseball? Talking tribe. We're talking baseball.